Hey everyone, Aaron here from MTGChallengers and welcome to another Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today I'll be discussing our Temur Monsters deck for Khans of Tarkir Standard. I think Temur, that is blue, red, and green, is one of the most interesting color combinations, and in this case, it makes a really cool deck. Basically, it's a red-green monsters deck with just a splash of blue for a couple more creatures, as well as some stuff in the side. Very unique and I think very powerful. So let's break down the cards one by one, starting with the creature base. 4 Sylvan Caryatid is a necessity for any green mid-range deck in Standard right now. It's great for mana fixing, especially in a 3-color deck like this one, and the hexproof makes it a lot harder to remove than something like Elvish Mystic. The 3 toughness also makes it a good blocker up against little aggressive creatures, and keeps it out of range of Drown in Sorrow, which can be important. The main benefit that it provides for the deck is just acceleration. It helps you get out your win conditions earlier. I also have a playset of Rattleclaw Mystic. A bit worse overall than the Caryatid, but I think it's a lot more versatile. For all intents and purposes for this deck, it fixes just as well, and being 2 power enables it to be fairly aggressive if need be. The morph is also nice when you need it, in case you're up against like red deck wins or something and you need the 2 toughness to block goblin tokens. And then you can flip it over basically for free since it replaces all the mana you'll spend on it, so overall a very solid, versatile card. Next I have another standard staple, Courser of Kruphix. 4 copies of course, just an amazing card. It gives you so much advantage over the course of a game. It helps to fix you, filters lands out of your deck, helps you hit all those land drops, and it races your opponent with the life gain. 4 toughness is also excellent as a general blocker, and it dodges things like Lightning Strike and Anger of the Gods, which is important since it's in the sideboard. Probably my favorite Courser interaction in the deck is with the fetch lands. So you play the Wooded Foothills or whatever, then you get to see what's on top of your library. Then if you don't like it, if it's another land or something that you don't need, you can crack the land and shuffle it away and get another card on top. Just a very powerful card overall. Starting off the bigger win conditions of the deck, I have 3 Savage Knuckleblade, just a real powerhouse of a card at 3 mana. 4/4 for 3 is already great, but the abilities make it so much more versatile. You can give it haste to be able to swing in the first turn it comes into play, return it to your hand to save it from a removal spell or a board wipe or something, or just pump it up to a 6/6 to create a profitable block, or to just push through more damage. Really just a toolbox for 3 mana. Polukranos World Eater is another automatic 4-of that I have in the deck. 5/5 for 4 mana is already really good, but the monstrous ability is just crazy in the mid to late game. Basically, he lets you take all that mana that you've accumulated, which is usually a huge amount since Courser is helping you hit those land drops, and pour it into his ability to make him massive and knock off whatever blockers that they may have. He's been a green staple since he was printed, and he continues to be so. Also, with Mana Dorks, you can get him out on turn 3, which is just awesome. Next, I have a playset of Stormbreath Dragon. Another standard staple. He comes down turn 5 or turn 4 with a dork and just starts wrecking face immediately, provided that they don't have a Hornet Queen out or something like that in the air. The Monstrous isn't quite as good as Polukranos, but it still can be very powerful, especially up against something like Control, where they keep their hand nice and full so you can maximize the damage that way. In any case, it becomes a 7/7 flyer, which is usually just game over, and the protection from white makes it off limits to Banishing Light, Abzan Charm, or any removal of that sort. The final creature we have in the deck is Surrak Dragonclaw, 2 copies of him. This guy just does so much for 5 mana. 6/6 with flash, can't be countered, prevents all other creature spells you have from being countered as well, and it gives all your huge Polukranos and Stormbreath Dragons trample. This card is just insane. A lot of people aren't familiar with Temur, so they just don't see you flashing in a 6/6 to block their creature, things like that. And then when you untap him, you basically just win because they lost their creature, and now you have 6 more power on the board along with all your other stuff that has trample, and every other creature you cast is going to resolve. Alright, so that's it for the creatures. Let's discuss some of the other spells in the deck. As for some miscellaneous removal, 3 Magma Jet works well for what it is. 2 damage to a creature or player is significant enough for the main board to pick off any little Elvish Mystics or some aggressive creatures, and getting to scry 2 on top of that is just great every time, especially with its interaction with Courser of Kruphix. You can clearly tell when you want to scry the top card of your library away. Finally, we have the Planeswalkers of the deck, starting with 3 Xenagos the Reveler, a very good all-around walker for the deck's purposes. You can 0 him all day for 2/2 chump blockers that can also swing in the turn they come in, or you can +1 him a little later in the game to replace the mana you spent on him and be able to cast something else like a Polukranos, Courser, or something like that. You can also, of course, pump the extra mana into Polukranos or Stormbreath's monstrous ability in the late game, which makes him very useful overall. And the ultimate, if you get it off, can be great since almost the entire deck is creatures and lands. Next, we have 2 copies of Kiora the Crashing Wave. Another interesting use of the blue splash for the deck, not a lot of Temur decks that I see are playing her, but I think she provides a lot of utility. She gives you card advantage with her -1 ability and helps you to ramp a little bit, and the ability also works really well with Courser of Kruphix since you'll be able to see the top card, and if it's something you want, you can use the -1 to get it into your hand, and then play another land to gain another life with the Courser. The +1 is also pretty nice to be able to protect her and you from your opponent's biggest threat. And the final walker and spell I have in the deck is Sarkhan the Dragonspeaker. I'm running 2 of him. The +1 ability is very good to basically turn him into a Stormbreath Dragon for the turn. If they don't have anything in the air to answer him, you can fly over for a good bit of damage. It can also be good up against Hornet Queen to slowly but surely pick off the tokens, since he is indestructible so the Death Touch won't work. And the -3 can be pretty decent just for some miscellaneous removal, particularly in the green mirror to pick off their Coursers of Kruphix and whatnot. So that's it for the spells. Let's take a quick look at the mana base. Of course, I am running a playset of the fetch land in our colors, Wooded Foothills. Fetch lands are amazing, good for fixing and filtering out the lands from the deck, so you're more likely to draw creatures that you want, and other stuff that you need in the mid to late game. I'm also running 8 pain lands, and those are 4 Yavimaya Coast and 4 Shivan Reef. These are some of my favorite dual lands ever because they're always good. They give you colored mana and tempo in the early game when you need it and can afford to pay the life, and in the mid to late game when you have plenty of other colored sources, you get free generic mana out of them. Next, I have 7 Scry lands consisting of 4 Temple of Abandon, 2 Temple of Mystery, and 1 Temple of Epiphany. Scrying is always nice to do, gets dead cards to the bottom and out of the way so you can draw your relevant ones. These are the only tap lands I'm running, so we're not sacrificing too much tempo here. And rounding off the 25 land mana base, I have 6 basics consisting of 3 forests and 3 mountains. So that's it for the main board. Now we move on to the sideboard. First off, I have 3 Nylea's Disciple, a really great sideboard card against things like Jeskai Burn or any kind of aggressive deck. In my experience, people don't really see this card coming, so when you drop it and gain usually 5 life plus, it can really throw them off and tip the balance back into your favor. 3 copies of Unravel the Aether is great against any decks running things like Banishing Light or Whip of Erebos. Courser of Kruphix is an enchantment as well, so it can deal with them in the mirror. It also gets rid of any gods if they're playing any. Next up, I have 2 Disdainful Stroke. A great use of the blue splash in the side. It's pretty much the perfect spell up against the mirror or any kind of big mid-range deck. It counters their Polukranoses, Stormbreath Dragons, Hornet Queens, Siege Rhinos, and other things like Whip of Erebos. It just does so much up against the bigger decks. For a little more counter magic, I have 2 copies of Negate. More up against the control decks and mid-range decks like Mardu or something that aren't playing as many creatures, to be able to efficiently counter most of their deck for a low cost of 2 mana. 2 Anger of the Gods can be just a blowout up against the green mirror, and of course any small aggressive decks. While the mono-green strategy is very similar to ours, they're just running a lot more dorks, like Elvish Mystics and Satyr Wayfinders, and they rely on Hornet Queen a lot as the main win condition, so generally speaking, it hurts them a lot more than it hurts us. I'm also running Temur Charm as a 2 of. A card is really good in a lot of different situations, can be used for some good removal, especially since we're running large creatures to begin with, so the +1/+1 can put it over the top. It's also some more counter magic in the side with the mana leak ability, and it can deal a lethal blow to, again, aggressive decks or mono green to be able to push past all their dorks and smaller creatures. And finally, I have 1 copy of Chandra Pyromaster. Good in a variety of matchups. Her +1 can pick off some dorks or disable larger creatures, and her 0 ability has some synergy with Courser of Kruphix and all the scry effects. So that's it for this deck tech. Be sure to check out our others. To see these decks in action, check out our gameplay videos. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like the Facebook page and consider making a donation to support the continuation of this project. Thanks for watching, and as always, subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content.